What's up, everybody? I'm James Young with jamesyoungphotography.com, and today I'm bringing you episode number 2 of Teach Me How to Lightroom. Today we're going to be talking about this night portrait. We're going to be giving it a cinematic effect. We're going to be doing all kinds of split toning and adding blues into the shadows. Let's get right into it. Right away, I'm happy with the composition I was able to get in the camera, so I'm just going to leave it where it's at. And then I'm going to move into the basic panel here for the edit. The first thing I'm going to do is add a little bit of exposure back into the image. About 0.2 will work for now. Then as we move down, I want to add just a little bit of contrast, probably about plus 20. Now in the highlights, we want to bring those up actually. We want to bring those up to about plus 25. And the shadows, we're really going to crank these up. With the shadows, we're going to do like plus 95. Really bring those shadows out and get a lot of information in there. With the whites, we're also going to add about 25 to these. And then with the blacks, let's go down minus 10. So that's looking pretty good. As we move down to the presence, I actually want to move the clarity down about minus 20 or so. This reduces the overall contrast in the midtones, and the reason why that's beneficial is because it reduces the edges or the harshness of the edges on the model's face here. So if we remove that and then come back to minus 20, it looks much better. Continuing down the presence here, we're not going to touch the vibrance, but we're going to bring the saturation down minus 35. There we go. With the tone curve, we're going to apply the medium contrast preset that Adobe gives us, and we're going to come back to this later, so don't forget. We're going to ignore the HSL, and we're going to go straight to the split toning. On the hue of the highlights, we're going to go to about 60, right there. And on the saturation, we're only going to go about plus 10, so we're adding a little bit of yellow back into the highlights there, turning it off and on, and you can see it looks much better, adding a little bit of warmth back into the highlights. And then with the shadows, what we're going to do is we're going to add around 242 on the hue, or adjust the slider to 242 rather. Or 243 looks good too. And then on the saturation, we're really going to go in here. We're going to do about plus 25 on the saturation. Now with those changes, we're going to scroll back up. We're going to go to the temperature here, and we're going to add warmth back into the image. Let's go to about 4500, looks good. And you might say, well, what about all the blue that we added back into the shadows? Well, we're getting to that here right now. Well, we're going to scroll back down to the tone curve, and we're going to change the channel from RGB into blue. From there, we're going to raise the node all the way to the left, about 2.4% is good. And, you know, it might seem a little subtle, but when we turn it off and on, you can see that there is quite a bit of blue added back into the image. So now that we've done that, we're going to change the channel back to RGB, and we're going to give this a matte finish. The way we're going to do that is we're going to remove this node here, the second from the left, by double clicking. From there, we're going to raise the node that's all the way to the left, and we're also going to move it a little bit to the right as well. So right about here. This looks good here, 11.4/9.8%. That looks good. This is really eyeballed here. It's really up to personal taste at this point, but let's turn it off and turn it on. You can see here that the matte finish here in the tone curve is an extremely powerful tool, and it really brings a lot more of the blue and the overall the cinematic look to the image. And there's a few more things I want to add to the image as we close out the edit. I'm going to scroll down, and as I get to sharpening, you can see Lightroom starts with 25 when you do a default import. I'm just going to raise that to 70 for this portrait. And when you do that, it does introduce a little bit more grain and noise into the image. So I'm just going to do a little bit of noise reduction to this image, about 30. And that looks significantly better. I can turn it off and then turn it back on You can see it does make a difference, especially when you're zoomed in quite a bit. So if you decide to print, it's always a good idea to increase that sharpness just a little bit. But I'm really happy with the way this edit turned out. You can go even further. You can maybe add a vignette to it. But I think that that's just a little bit unnecessary. I shot this with the Canon 85 1.2. And that lens has quite a bit of vignette when shot wide open at 1.2 naturally, so I'm not going to add any more to it. There's already plenty. And if you liked the video, it'd be awesome if you left a like on it and even hit me with a subscribe. I'm James Young with jamesyoungphotography.com. This has been episode number 2 of Teach Me How to Lightroom. I'll see you in the next episode.